Hey, this is Ishar, and in today's talk, I'd like to go over an idea that I've been pondering over, which I think you'll find pretty useful. And I'm a bit surprised that not many people have talked about this, at least to my knowledge. And here I'll be revisiting the five spiritual powers found in Buddhism, which are meant to help you awaken, and how you can use these five spiritual powers or faculties to actually improve your social interactions and social life. Now, from a traditional point of view, they would say that you shouldn't really use these teachings to improve the self. However, I do think that you can certainly integrate these teachings because if you think about it, in an awakened being, these five powers or faculties are naturally present within them. So that means they will tend to bring these five powers, which I'll talk about in a second, in everything that they do. So this also includes their social interactions and their relationships that they have, in addition to other things like, say, their meditation practice or their service to other people, and so on. So nothing is actually excluded from the path, but it can actually be included and integrated. And if we can learn how to use these five spiritual powers in this one domain of, say, social interactions, then we can apply it to other things, such as using it in our personal hobbies, our lifestyle, how we conduct ourselves. And you can start to see how you can use these things and they'll start to grow on each other like a feedback loop. So there's a saying that goes, how you do one thing is how you do everything. So we can actually practically train ourselves to embody these qualities by applying it into this domain of social interactions, and then use it for other things in our lives in other fields. So it becomes more natural for us. So first, I'll be going over what these five faculties or powers are in Buddhism, and I'll be describing it from a Buddhist point of view, and then I'll be showing you how you can practically apply it in social interactions. So going over these five powers. So these are different powers that help support a practitioner in awakening. So the first quality is faith. So having faith in the Buddhist teachings or Dharma that if you follow this path, you too can be awakened. Now, the second quality is energy. So if we can generate enough faith, this will then generate energy and creates energy, which can be then further used to create our next step or power, which is mindfulness. So, mindfulness is where we watch where our attention goes from one moment to the next. And when we're able to be very mindful moment by moment, this will then lead to the next power, which is concentration. So, you may have heard of concentration style meditation, where we gather our attention and calm the mind and bring our attention to one point. Now, when we're able to get into this place of deep concentration, naturally insights and wisdom will start to rise. And this is the last power, which is wisdom. So if you start to look at these qualities again, these are faith, energy, mindfulness, then concentration, and wisdom. And they work with each other synergistically. Now, the reason why these five faculties are sometimes referred to as powers is because they have the power to get rid of certain unwholesome states of being. So, when you generate a lot of faith, this will naturally get rid of doubt within you because you have faith in whatever you're believing in. And the next quality of energy is a factor which controls laziness and lethargy. So, when you generate that energy, you just don't feel very heavy anymore. And when we generate enough mindfulness, we control our heedlessness or distraction, where we're just simply unaware of things. And when we learn to generate concentration, we can then control ourselves from being distracted. So it stops us from having our attention scattered all over the place because we're able to focus it. And lastly, when we develop this quality of wisdom or discernment, then we get rid of ignorance, where we're simply just unaware. And these are very, positive qualities to develop. Now, when we're starting to look at how we can apply this to our social interactions, we can start to see how this can work. So, if we take the first quality of faith, how we can generate this in a social interaction is to adopt a good frame of mind or a good set of beliefs in which we anticipate good responses from other people. So if you view everyone as being very friendly, and this is one example of a positive frame you can set, then other people will seem to be friendlier to you. It's weird how that works. It's like a self fulfilling prophecy. You may have noticed people in your life that may have experienced the opposite, where they tend to see everyone as very hostile and people that are just out to get them. And when you start to look into their lives, you'll see that it actually becomes true. So they start to see other people as, say, hostile, and they tend to have a lot of people just not like them, or they get into fights with people, or if they think that everyone, is just simply rude, they tend to encounter a lot of rude people. It's weird how that works because our attention and our focus really produces a lot of things in our life and makes it seem true. So our attention is our most valuable resource. So what are you putting your attention to? And this self-fulfilling prophecy can be obviously be turned to the more positive light, because if you see everyone as your friend, you tend to naturally approach them in a very friendly manner, and they also tend to be very friendly as well. And even if, sure, you might get the odd negative response from people, or people just mean that day, you don't get personally offended because you're also able to diffuse the situation because you're not resistant, and you can just write that off as a one-off thing. So this is a radically different viewpoint, um, compared to seeing everyone as like an enemy or someone who's out to get you or just challenging them. So practically speaking, if we're able to generate this good faith towards other people and you're generally trusting towards other people, you will tend to view the world in a light manner. People are friendly, interactions tend to go well. You'll also notice that people will treat you nicely most of the time, wherever you go. And then also, you will also gain energy from not indulging in these, say, negative beliefs that rob you of energy. So when you're able to adopt this friendly frame of mind, then you start to generate this energy because your attention is placed in the right places. Now, to generate this energy even more, we can start to think about how we spread value to other people. So, start to think about this. When you're talking to someone and you're in a social interaction, are you trying to get something from them or are you freely giving? So, when you're in a positive and uplifting mood, you will tend to freely give. You would like to expand whatever's going on, the positivity and the lightness and the humor and the fun that's going around. And these are all signs of positive things that give you more energy. You don't get drained by doing those things. On the other hand, if you come from a frame of mind where you're trying to take from the environment, you want something from other people, this will actually rob you of energy and also rob the entire room of energy as well. You can kind of feel that energy. When we use the word value leech to describe a person, um, or you might have heard the term that person just sucks the air out of the room. These aren't very positive ways to describe people, but this alludes to this phenomenon of taking things and wanting things from the environment or other people. And this comes from a place of lack and also from the ego, which isn't fulfilled on its own, constantly needs to climb and grab at things, right? So if you're able to simply just be happy, to radiate energy and to create an overall positive experience for yourself and other people, then you can start to generate this positive energy, which will then lead to the next quality, which is mindfulness. So, mindfulness in Buddhism is known as the guardian quality. So, it tends to protect you. And the reason why it does that is because you're being very vigilant and mindful of where your attention is going to and how you're investing your energy. Now, this is quite the opposite of if you go to, say, a busy nightlife area on a Friday night where people are doing things that are quite opposite of being mindful. They may be drinking a lot, or they might end up fighting with people or saying things they possibly regret. And this is the opposite of that mindfulness quality. And you too can also start to think about it. Like, how many times have you said something to another person out of anger, or you're just caught up in the moment of emotions and you just said something that you later regretted? And this will actually cause you to rob you of that energy we just learned to develop, right? So we can proactively notice how we're expending our energy and what we're placing our attention to. And you can limit these unmindful behaviors by being mindful of your conduct. So this can include things like your hygiene, how you're speaking to others, what you're speaking, what kind of content you're speaking about, and also being mindful of the other person. Are they having a good time? Are they being a bit uncomfortable? So you can start to pay attention. Now, some people tend to be on extremes of things where they tend to only focus on themselves and they make the other person very uncomfortable, or they tend to be only focusing on the other person from a place of lack and neediness. And this is like people pleasing behaviors. So, mindfulness will help correct these extremes and come from more of a positive manner in which you're mindful of how you're presenting yourself and also mindful of the other person and how they're having their experience, and you're coming from a place where your cup is full, where you're not taking anything from them, but rather just giving and freely being with them. Now, it'd be even better if you can infuse some of your meditative qualities into the social interactions. So, what I mean by this is meditation is not something you just do when you're sitting on your cushion, but ideally something you can carry with you throughout your day. So, if you learn to meditate and calm the mind when you're on the cushion, then maybe when you're talking in a conversation, if you have a quick moment of silence, you can focus on your breath, or you can focus on your feet firmly planted to the ground. Maybe you can be aware of your environment, whatever it is for you, whatever meditative practices you can do, like a noting practice or labeling practice. These are just a few examples. Whatever you can do to come back to the present moment will help you connect back to this mindful quality. And the more times you come back to this mindful quality, you'll start to generate more concentration. Now, when we're able to be very concentrated and our mind is just focused at the task at hand, we start to get into a flow state. So you may have experienced this in your meditation if you were sitting and you kind of like hit this point in which you're completely focused on your object of meditation and nothing else is in your way or nothing else is confusing you. You're not thinking about the past, you're not thinking about the future, you're just in the present moment and things just to drop away. And you start to enter this flow state in which you're just completely immersed in the activity itself. So you and the activity become one. And a lot of athletes tend to report flow states as well when they're, say, playing a basketball game and they just get in the zone. These are just a few ways they describe it, of getting into this flow state. Well, you can also see how you can take that same level of flow state activity in your meditation and bring it into your social interactions. So if you're able to completely bring your attention onto the other person and you're just there, you're not thinking about, what you're going to do later, you're just there with that person and you're not checking your phone or doing other things, you'll start to enter this flow state once again where you're just simply there with the person and it actually becomes a lot easier to socialize. So, how many times have you been in your head trying to think about what you're going to say next? And when you do that, you tend to become more stuck in your head and you're just unable to have a communication with that person. And the opposite of this level of concentration is you're just completely distracted. So, you can think about this when a lot of people are literally sitting in front of each other, on the dinner table, having dinner, and they're just on their phones. They're not even looking at each other. So, this is the opposite of a concentrated state. So, or you can think about this when you go to, like, say, a party or an event, and someone is just like standing by the wall and they're just looking around and they're kind of in their own little bubble and they're just simply just watching everything else and they're not in their own zone or own flow. So, how can we generate this concentration? Once again, just put your attention on the other person and put your attention on yourself. And also, from that mindfulness that we learn to develop, this will naturally bleed into concentration. Lastly, we have the last quality, which is wisdom. And in this context of social interactions, we can learn social skills. So a lot of people will tend to come up with excuses as far as why they're not getting the social life that they want. They may say that they're shy or they're nervous to talk to people, but really they just haven't had enough experiences in which they've talked to people. So you'll find that when you get more experiences just socializing with people, and you can prove to your brain that it's actually okay to socialize with people, you're not going to get beat up or people are not going to yell at you for just saying hi or just talking to them. Well, what will happen is that you'll start to become more confident in being more social. But going a bit further, you can use this wisdom factor to also notice and evaluate your life and the people that you're bringing into your life to see, okay, what types of friends bring me energy and what types of friends drain me of energy. Have you ever thought of that? Early in my 20s, I've personally noticed this where I'd hang around with a lot of friends who'd be negative all the time and they would complain. And I just noticed I started to feel a drain of my energy the more I hung out with them. And there were other friends that I hang out with who were very positive, very uplifting. They like to crack jokes. They're very humorous. They're fun to be around. They added energy and positivity, something we talked about earlier. And these people were just very nice to hang around with. So you can start to see that in your life, which people tend to complain and rob you of energy and which people bring you more energy. So this wisdom factor can help you discern, and it's a discerning factor to see what influences would you like in your life and which influences would you not like in your life. And you can focus instead on the more positive aspects. So you can use this way of thinking, not just for your friends, but the types of places you go out to, the types of crowds that go to these specific environments, and you can be more discerning. And because if you really think about it, a lot of people tend to live their social lives, at least, on autopilot. They just do go to a certain venue because everyone goes there, or they, watch a certain show or program because everyone else is watching it. But they haven't developed that discernment to see, do I actually like this? Or am I just going along with things? And again, these other qualities that we talked about, like concentration and mindfulness, will help you in these aspects to really see, where you're being just going along with the flow and where you can actually discern and choose where you like to put your attention. Now, again, keep doing your meditation practice as you practice these social skills as well, because both work hand in hand with each other. So I hope you like this talk on using these 5 spiritual powers on Buddhism and seeing how you can apply it in your social life. And going a bit further, as a little homework assignment, try to use some of these tips that I've talked about in this talk to your existing social interactions, or maybe if you want to start a social circle and new friends, try to use these tips and see how it actually gives you more energy and improves your life and, say, raises your vibration rather than lower it. So, hope you like this talk. Thank you very much.